being recorded now. There we go, the recording has started, thank you. Okay, so my name's Annette Roberts. For those of you who, many of you who are on the call will know who I am, but not all of you. So I'm Annette Roberts and I'm the Corporate Director here at the Council. And I'll be hosting the session this evening. We've hopefully put together the session this evening that covers a number of key topics, which hopefully will spark some interest and spark some what you've been doing in the parishes. We've also got some locality enablers here tonight too, who again, as parishes, I'm sure you'll be aware of who they are. So they'll be friendly faces within your workshop sessions. I'm just going to run through the agenda. So if Liz, if you could just send the agenda, that's lovely. Thank you. So in a moment, we're going to hear from Councillor Len Bates of this council, of South Staffs Council. And then we're going to hear some words from Councillor Julia Jessel from Staffordshire County Council with responsibility for climate change. We're then going to hear a little bit about our own South Staffordshire climate change strategy. We're not going to talk too much about that because you've hopefully seen that, you've had that in advance. And the purpose of tonight isn't to tell you all about that because you can read that yourselves, but just to highlight some of the things that that's going on within the district. So you'll see a little bit in terms of our community hub and the energy saving and climate change interventions as part of the hub. You're also going to hear a little bit about tree planting and opportunities for parishes to be involved if you're not already. You'll also hear about the flood plans that we've got as well. And again, if you're not involved, an opportunity for you to be involved with that. You're also going to hear from Martin Peake from Beat the Cold, who's going to run you through a really interesting presentation in relation to fuel poverty and obviously clearly the implications for climate change. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a few questions before we break out into some facilitated breakout sessions. So I will explain exactly what you need to do to go into your other session, your locality session. You've been set out into a workshop, so which will mean that you'll need to leave this meeting at that point and go into your other locality session. So we'll do that again in a go through that again when we break at that time. And then what we will do is we'll come back to this meeting and come back to this main meeting and have a feedback before we close for this evening. Okay. So before we go into start the session, I'm going to hand you over to Councillor Leonard Bates, BEM, who's the Cabinet Member for Community Services, to say a few words. Over to you, Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Annette. Good evening, everybody. In my role as Cabinet Member with special responsibility for climate change, I have to say that climate change is an issue that affects us all. And I believe that we can make a significant impact if we all work together. If we work together, we can have a major impact at local level and encourage action on a wider scale. Shortly, you will hear about our climate change strategy document, which was approved by Council in 2010. We have already carried out a number of actions, many of which relate to the refurbishment of the council offices, which have been transformed into a fantastic hub. The plan also relates to the local interventions. As a respect, we have now very special tree planting strategy and a tactical flood plan. This evening we will hear about both the tree planting and the flooding, and about the measures we are to carry out throughout the district. We want to hear from you about what you are doing as a parish, and we're aware of the good work that is being done at the present time by parishes. We're also going to hear about how the district council can work together with other bodies. You will no doubt be aware that the district council have provided a Localities Plus model across the 5 localities in South Staffordshire. As a result, we are now seeing the fruits across the district. The locality model is all about the 3-tier system in local government. This involves the county council, the district council and parish councils. We are pleased to have County Councillor Julia Jessel with us this evening, and I will now hand over to Councillor Jessel, who will elaborate on the three-tier model. Councillor Jessel, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Leonard Bates. It's a real opportunity, and I thank you all for inviting me here this evening. As Leonard has said, working together is actually vital. We need to work together so we coordinate our actions to get the most outputs, that we avoid duplication and also share best practice. And on that basis, one of my aims is to get a partnership board on similar lines to the Joint Waste Management Board, where we can just do that and do together those things that are best done together, but also carry on with our own agendas as well. So that three-tier working with the county, the districts and boroughs and the parish councils is an essential building block for the public sector to drive this agenda. We all recognise that as private sector organisations, we're not the biggest emitters of carbon dioxide, but we do make a significant difference, and we can influence others, we can influence businesses, we can influence our local communities, which is absolutely essential. The County Council recently adopted what we call a climate change strategic development framework, which has a very long title, but I'm delighted to say it's not a very long document. It's only 8 pages, including all the graphics, because I'm a great believer in action, not words. And I think we recognise as a nation, as part of a global community, that actions are what is needed. And that sets out priority themes, and looking at your strategy and the county's strategy, the synergy all the way through, which is really great to see. We're looking at organisational carbon reduction, which is in effect putting our house in order. Improving air quality, which is so essential to the quality of our life by increasing sustainable travel, reducing travel by fossil fueled vehicles, and obviously helping to facilitate the rollout of electric vehicles. Improving the natural environment, flood prevention, which again is featuring this evening, but also at carbon sequestration. We've all signed up to the vision of net zero emissions of carbon dioxide by 2050. Some authorities have gone even more and gone to 2030 or 2035. I think we have to be honest. You can't achieve that without some sort of carbon offsetting or carbon sequestration. And actually, we're beginning to work with Keele University to get them to come on board and help us with that agenda. Reducing waste. You're a waste collection authority. The county is a waste disposal authority. Waste, we need to reduce it. We need to recycle and reuse wherever possible. But lastly, which is really important, behaviour change. Climate change is a responsibility for all of us. Individuals, local communities, parishes, districts and boroughs, and the county. And one of the things that we have done is introduced a climate change community fund, which has been extremely successful. We only launched it in October, and we will be carrying on next year. And that helps community groups and parish councils, small amount of funding to help them with those vital projects. But one or two other things that I can share with you in terms of what we're hoping to do so we can all work together more effectively is we're developing an online training package which has been tailor-made primarily for the staff at the county council, because climate change isn't the responsibility of just one small department, it's the responsibility of all the staff. But we want to make those training modules available to districts and boroughs, to parish councils and to community groups, so that they can get the training to know what they can do and what's the most effective action. But supporting that, we want what we call a carbon dioxide reduction tool. If as a parish council, say, you wanted to replace the lighting in your parish hall with LED lightings, you could access this tool online, put in how many lights you want to replace, and it will tell you what the carbon dioxide reduction is. So we can actually give some quantitative assessment of the progress we're making. So once again, thank you all very much for this opportunity. It'll be really good to see your presentations, but I'm really looking forward to the workshops where I can listen to you and listen to the ideas that you've got. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates, and thank you, Councillor Jessel. Over to you, Grant.
Thanks, Annette. Good evening, everybody. I'm Grant Mitchell. I'm the Assistant Director for Enterprise and Growth at the Council, and I work closely with Councillor Bates and Annette on this agenda. If we could move on to the next slide, please, Liz. Thank you. What I wanted to do, I wasn't planning to go through the strategy in a huge amount of detail tonight. You've had it sent out to you. Tonight's not about great big high level strategic things. It's about how we can work practically together in our communities to make a big difference. But just a little bit of context for us as the District Council. We declared a climate change emergency in September 2019, and we subsequently set up a member challenge panel to look at very much where we were at that point in time. Whilst we haven't had necessarily a climate change strategy before that, we have been doing a number of actions across different service functions of the council that have been contributing to the climate change agenda. So it was understanding where that baseline position was to enable us to move forward, and then to start to put together a plan for addressing the climate change emergency and looking at what the resource implications would be for the council to enable us to meet that declaration that we declared. So the climate change strategy that has been sent out to you is the result of that challenge panel's piece of work, and there is an action plan behind it which didn't go out with the strategy and is a little bit more detailed, but is what we're working on internally. So if we move on to the next slide, what our members sought to do through a vision with the strategy is minimise the environmental impact of our own activities, and as Councillor Jessel put it, get our own house in order, working with our partners to protect and enhance our local environments, and very much a recognition that we can't do this alone. We need to work with all of you to help make that happen, and raise awareness and encourage our communities and businesses to reduce their impact on the environment. And if we move on to the next slide, please, Liz, this is very much the priorities there. So part of this evening is raising awareness with you, but it's also very much tied into how we work with our partners. Again, recognition that, to use the phrase, no man is an island. We want to work with all of our partners to bring this agenda forwards and start to make a difference. We recognise that with our planning responsibilities that we've got a significant role there. The council operations itself, but tonight really, and this is partly why we're all here tonight, is about working with you as partners and start to make that big difference moving forward into the future. So what we've got for you now are some examples of where we as the District Council are looking at some activities, just some good examples of what we're doing on this climate change strategy, just to hopefully provoke some debate, and we can move into the workshops then to start talking about what's going on in the localities. So if I hand over now onto the next slide, which I believe is Imre, to talk about our community hub project. Imre, over to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Grant, and good evening, everybody. So yeah, my name is Imre Tolgesi. I'm the project manager of the new Codsall Community Hub project, which is currently underway, is currently taking place. What I'm going to be doing over the next few slides is taking you through some of the climate change measures that we're putting in place here at the new Codsall Community Hub. So I'll ask Liz to move on to the next slide, please. So the community hub in itself really is three projects in one. We're looking at a new build, a refurbishment of the existing building, and we're looking at improving the external space as well. And some of the key drivers behind the business case for this in the early days, which have driven through, were very much led from a one public estate piece of work, which looked at how we could reduce the amount of public sector buildings within the localities to reduce the running costs for all those separate buildings by condensing them all into one. And we've got around 6 public sector buildings all being condensed into one as a result of this project. So it's really reducing the running costs that we've got from all those individual and separate buildings. We also have a lot of small businesses since launching the Business Hub that have expressed interest in joining the hub. So we're increasing the amount of serviced offices available to those businesses. We're also seeing a new GP surgery moving here onto site, relocation of the library to the front of the building as well. But importantly, on the refurbishment, we've got a building here with very outdated services, such as the heating systems, the water systems, the cooling systems, or there weren't many cooling systems in the original build. So what we're doing is upgrading and updating elements which hadn't, in many cases, been touched since it was first built in the 1970s. So a very, very complex, extensive programme of work, which is still on track and due for completion in February 2022. And we've actually already had handover now of our first phase, and I'm actually physically sitting in the new office space, which was handed over to us only a couple of weeks ago. So Liz, if you could move on to the next slide, please. I'm going to focus on a little bit more detail now then on some of these spaces. What you can see there on that picture there is me sitting, is one of those desks. I'm currently sitting at one of those desks at the moment. The only difference is it's a bit darker at the moment, and I've got one of the lights sort of above my head, which is quite interesting because one of the things we've done with the building is we've upgraded all of the electrical components for the building, and we've taken the opportunity there to change everything to LED lighting, but also automatic motion censored lighting as well. So when you enter in a room, the lights come on, and after 30 minutes of inactivity, those lights go off as well. So as I look over that open plan office that you can see on your picture there, actually most of those lights are off apart from a few solitary ones above my head at the moment. One of the other things that we're also doing is upgrading and changing the very old outdated heating system. In fact, it was quite interesting talking to many people who remembered the building and worked here when it was first built with the single glazed glass and the old water pipes that would run in front of them, and even though the heating was on full whack, they would still be sitting there in their coats and their gloves and their scarves and their hats shivering. And I'm pleased to report that sitting here now, as you can see in my shirt, it's a very comfortable environment. We've got fresh air, heat being blown into and sucked out of the building as well, so we're changing fresh air 2.5 times every hour. And what we've opted for is a system run by a manufacturer called Dakin. It's a variant refrigerant volume system, so it's very, very, very energy efficient to run. It's all automatic on its motion sensors, and even the small amount of refrigerant that goes into it. The reason we chose Dakin was because they were the only company in the UK that provided 100% recycled refrigerant to go into that system. Again, reducing the impact for climate change with not having having that potentially releasing into the atmosphere. The other thing that we're doing as well on the bullet points there is changing the water heating system. As you would have ordinarily got on a building of this scale and size historically, was one large boiler house providing hot water being pumped out across the whole building to all the hot water taps. Very inefficient, huge amount of money to run. It would have been a gas operated system as well historically. So that has now all been changed to electric units that are providing hot water for those taps when they're needed, as opposed to storing lots of hot water and pumping it around the building, losing lots of energy as that's going on. So it's heating on demand and less use of fossil fuels as well. We're not using the gas. We also have a Power Star Virtue battery storage system that's connected up to the solar panels on the roof as well. So at different times of the day, we're taking energy from the panels, storing those in the batteries, and at certain times as a building, we're using that. And there are certain parts of the day when we're not even connected up to the grid. We're just using the only electricity that we provide and make ourselves. And then at other times in the day when there is a peak demand on the grid, we actually sell that electricity back to the grid. So it actually starts to become slightly income generating for us as well. As you would expect, on the insulation side of things, we've taken the opportunity to maximise on the insulation. And we actually made a change to that during the build where we realised that we could fit even more insulation into those environments. So we've done that, measures that I'm sure you're used to and would expect us to be taking on board as well. But importantly, the last bullet point there is around increased remote working and reducing the need to travel in the first place. As we're all speaking now on Teams, there's a new ways of working document that all employees are now being inducted to as part of their induction into the building, because the expectation is that there's a new hybrid way of working for members of staff that use the building. So people won't necessarily need to come in 5 days a week like they did before. They'll have that choice. But ultimately, what that will lead to is a reduction in the journeys for people coming into the workplace environment based on their personal and the business needs as well. Okay, Liz, if you could move on to the next slide. Thank you. So just quickly going through this one then, what you're looking at on the right hand side is a bird's eye image looking down from the sky on the site, and the outline image in white is the footprint of the building, and you can also see the new car park wrapping around that to the northerly elevation there and wrapping around the building. So we did need to increase a few parking spaces so that we met our own planning needs for the spaces for the nature and type of services that are operating in the building. So whilst we've increased that, what we've taken the opportunity to do with the new tarmac going down is install new electric vehicle charge points. So we are having 8 for members of the public, 2 for disabled, and we've got the infrastructure and the wiring in place to expand on that as time goes on, as we become more electrified as well. We are also severely increasing the biodiversity around the planting on site, not just within the new bit, but around the rest of the site, and putting wildflower meadows on the grass bank towards the back of the site. And what was really lovely as well around the Swift bricks, this was actually something that came from a local resident during the planning stages when we were doing the consultation. And they said, have we ever heard of these to encourage more biodiversity on site? And we're actually putting Swift bricks into the new build extension on both sides to encourage more birding there. And part of the planting is making sure that we've got lots of planting with lots of berries on there as well for the birds. And finally, and I recognise I've got up this backwards from the bottom up rather than the top down, but to end with the bike storage as well. Something we didn't have a lot of before, but we know that more people are really interested in riding their bikes to work. We've got more showers going in. So we've got the facilities not only for staff, but for tenants, but we'll also have bike storage for members of the public and for people, occupiers, both staff and tenants, to be able to store their bikes. Again, helping reduce the need for people to drive into work in the first place. And on the new build, here you can see 2 images below. You can see on the left-hand side a side angle view of the library with that new car park that's wrapping around where some of the EV points will go. On the right-hand side, you can see, looking down, more of a bird's eye view. We've got the library as the larger wing that tails off to the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, there's a new retail space. And what we've put slap bang in the middle there is a new front door, a new front entrance for the building right on the front of the Wolverhampton Road. And as I mentioned right at the very beginning, the reason for pulling a lot of these services together with the GP surgery, the library, the police and so on, is that it took the opportunity for us to condense a number of public sector buildings into one, helping reduce the running costs there. So that new extension has been needed so that we can fit in all these new tenants that are coming to join us. On the roof of the library, we're installing natural ventilation systems. So that's what that image is there on the right-hand side. And what that will provide there is natural fresh air into the building, reducing the need for us to be running electric-powered air conditioning units. So we'll use as much natural air ventilation as we can, reducing the need to use electric components there. And then finally, on the westerly elevations, we're installing Bruce Soleil, which for those of you that have come to the building before, those are the solar shade panels in front of the windows, helping reduce the heat gain, again helping reduce the need for us to use to cool the air inside the building using air conditioning and electricity. So it just helps reduce that impact and that need. And what we did with the new build finally is we stuck with BREEAM standards on the building. We took the key principles of BREEAM. Even though we didn't need to on a building of this size, we still felt it was really important that we followed the BREEAM principles in the design and the build for the new build. So I hope you found that useful, and I can't wait actually for us all to be able to be open and for people to be able to come and have a look around and see the place, because it's starting to look fantastic. Okay, thank you, Liz.
Thank you very, very much, Imre. That was great. We're going to hand you over now to Ryan Taylor, who's our Performance and Enviro Crime Manager in the Street Scene team, who will talk to you about some tree planting and the flood plans. And just to say, councillors, what we'll be able to do just before we break into the workshop sessions, there will be opportunity to ask a few questions before we go into that workshop session. So we'll have opportunity just before we do that. So over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Annette, and good evening, everybody. And as Annette said, I'm Ryan Taylor. I'm the Performance and Environment Crime Manager within Street Scene, but I also work as the locality enabler for Locality 3. And across the district, I bring a bit of a focus on the work the council does around climate change at the local level and how the council works with its friends groups across the district. I'm going to talk very briefly here tonight about a couple of items around sort of adaptation and resilience to climate change, really, tree planting and tactical flood planning. Can I have the next slide, please, Liz? Thank you. So tree planting, as I'm sure you're all aware, trees are seen as key really for tackling climate change at a local level. And there's lots of rather sobering data about the effect of trees on the local climate. One mature tree, for example, has the same cooling effect as 10 air conditioning units. So there's lots of, there's a lot of benefit for the actual practical action of planting trees as well. Many of you will be aware of our work on the localities agenda, and a lot of our enabler specialisms cut across sort of community involvement, and tree planting is a great way of getting community involved in appreciation of the natural environment, and cuts across our specialisms: the environment, health, leisure, community safety, and even corporate social responsibility from a business point of view. There's a couple of photos there, of a tree planting event we held at our Sitch Lane Cemetery in Womben last year, which was planted with Year 4 children from St Benedict Biscop Primary in Womben. And that's our own commercial tree gang there, planting some trees rather than cutting them down for a change. Now, I think what's key to take away from this is I was talking to the children about the event and sort of talking through what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be tackling it. And I was very impressed with the knowledge that children had about why trees were important, what we use them for. And they're already aware of the climate change agenda. This is a great way of getting children involved in the local environment and getting them to take ownership of the site. I mean, there's clearly a national appetite for tree planting off the back of organisations like the Woodland Trust, the Urban Tree Challenge, the Forestry Commission, and there's lots of national campaigns that regularly appear to get folk planting trees. There's a famous old Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. So if you can't plant one 20 years ago, you may as well plant one now. I think we need to be aware, though, the challenge really in tree planting is finding land. South Staffordshire Council, since I've been at the council some 13 odd years ago, I estimate we've planted 1.6 hectares of new trees, whereas the Committee on Climate Change recommends 30,000 hectares of new tree planting afforestation each year across the UK. That gives you some indication of the scale of the problem, and not least of all, how we're likely to maintain these trees in the future. As I say, we can't really seem to be just relying on council land here. Can I have the next slide, please, Liz? Thank you. What I'd like to introduce this evening, really, and is an opportunity that you might like to take advantage of through the Forest of Mercia. The Forest of Mercia are an environmental organisation that are key partners with the council. They've recently received funding through the community forest to source, plant and initially maintain new tree planting. This will cover woodland creation, orchards, hedgerows and parklands. And at the moment, the Forest of Mercia are looking for landowners who are interested in turning over land to trees. And they're interested in local opportunities and partnerships. And I would encourage you all in this room to either get involved or spread the word for any landowners who might be interested in adding some new trees. The Forest of Mercia are also on hand to give sort of advice on sort of species selection and design in woodlands. So their details, we can send the details out as part of the presentations tonight, but you can also get in touch with myself through the council and I'll be able to put you in touch with the Forest of Mercia. Can I have the next slide, please, Liz? And very quickly, I'll talk a bit more about sort of climate change resilience and the work this council is doing around tactical flood planning. At the moment, we're drawing up a series of tactical flood plans for the district, which is in partnership with the Civil Contingencies Unit. I think it's key to note really that we're working from the ground up here. We're trying to develop sort of practical tools that will be useful at a local level in the fight against flood events. It's at the moment it's a bit of an information gathering tool for me and getting an understanding of any problems at a local level within the district. There's lots of consultation going on, not just with the parish councils. I'm also in conversations with the flood risk management team at the county council and the highways, as well as starting bits of conversations with private landowners, Severn Trent and Environment Agency. As I say, this is going to be a resilience tool really, and it answers that. So in answer to that so what question, it gives us a bit of an idea of weak points across the district and what conversations and actions need to be happening to make our residents and our community safer on the ground. What support can we offer to those vulnerable communities? As I say, I've been doing lots of parish council engagement, and there's lots of local interest and sites being brought forward as part of this, which we're going to be using as the potential for local resilience and support. Where we can start conversations, what we need to be doing on the ground, and how can we respond to emergencies and the potential for perhaps storing sandbags at local sites. Can I have the next slide, please, Liz? Thank you. I won't dwell too quickly on this, but it's just a bit of an example of how I'm starting to draw this information using an example of the great information Chesley and Hay Parish Council have given to us around flooding in the area. And here I've started to develop an idea of the issues that we're seeing on the site, along with putting forward sort of possible solutions and a bit of a wish list and the potential partners that we're looking to get involved here. I appreciate that's a lot of detail there, but it also sort of helps highlight to me and my colleagues at the council the important work that the parish councils are already doing in the area with things like taking on maintenance of drains and helping out at a local level, and also drawing out that local knowledge. There was a great example of the parish council identifying a takeaway that, for example, that was might be pouring stuff into drains and causing blockages along the highway route. And as I say, it's a bit of a conversation starting point really between the three tiers of council really, and how we can get the parishes working close with ourselves and working with our colleagues at the county and beyond that to sort of further landowners. As I say, the next stage for me now is to work these up and take them out to see if they actively reflect what the issues are within the district. Next slide, please, Liz. And I shall now hand you over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll hand over now to Martin. Martin from Beat the Cold, over to you.
So good evening. My name is Martin from Beat the Cold. I represent AFuel Poverty charity that works across Staffordshire and has done for sort of 25 years. As of the start of this coming financial year, we'll also be delivering the South Staffordshire Warmer Homes project, which is to reduce the incidence of coal-related ill health and fuel poverty in the district. So that's how to get hold of us in the short term. What we will be doing in the very near future is just making all our contact details available on the District Council's website as well. So next slide, please. Okay, so fuel poverty as a definition, it's basically it's individuals who won't have affordability to keep the home warm, or for us also people who will suffer from a cold home through poor health, predominantly that being respiratory poor health, coronary poor health. There's three main drivers. One is a lack of income, which is predominantly down to missed benefits or overpaying for the electricity and gas that they're using. That comes under the energy prices. But I think what's most relevant for here is the energy efficiency of the property. So obviously the more inefficient the property, the higher somebody's bills may be, and you can easily see variances of £600, £700, £800 additional cost for people who live in the most inefficient homes. So next slide, please. So Just very quickly, just a little bit of a mapping exercise here. I looked at the energy performance certificates for some of the smaller properties, and the reason I chose the smaller properties is that they're more likely to have people who have low incomes in them, just as a very broad brush. And I looked at the worst energy performance certificates that are sort of registered nationally, and I've highlighted them just on the sort of graph there, so you can see where, you know, which parishes have got the highest incidences of the most energy inefficient homes, and where there's obviously the greatest scope to improve them properties from the energy performance certificates, which are what I've mapped here of E, F and G, the most inefficient homes, and hopefully bring them towards being more efficient with sort of A, B and C standards. And there are, again, drives by government to make sure that we are bringing all properties up to a minimum EPC of C. So that just gives you a broad brush idea where these properties might be. It's by no means a perfect representation, but it's a very good start. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we're on about fuel poverty. So for me, this is again somebody who can't afford to heat the home. I say that, and most people will think it's old people, it's retired people, and I just wanted to sort of dispel that myth almost straight away. Yes, there are individuals, as you can see from this graph here, who are retired and elderly, who are in fuel poverty, but that percentage there is sort of around 5%. You are most likely to be fuel poor if you are a single parent living in a private rented property, predominantly pre-1919 terrace properties with a prepayment meter, and you can see on average across the country that jumps up to about sort of 20%, so 1 in 5 sort of households. And again, as you will know, across the district, there's obviously some areas which have greater deprivation than others, so them statistics, you know, jump sort of high up. So as you can see, as an issue where we go, you know, low income, high energy costs and property inefficiency, it affects pretty much everybody in different ways. So next slide, please. Okay, so I've mentioned fuel poverty. It's a government statistic. It's published every year in about June for the 2 years previous. So again, the latest statistics published in early 2021 cover sort of 2018. So there are 4,329 households. This isn't individuals, this is households in your district which are in fuel poverty. So these are official government statistics, which basically say these individuals can't afford to heat and eat. And one of the issues that's driving that is the inefficiency of their property. Okay, as I said, it's not equal across the district. So you can break it down by low super output area. And again, the worst area within South Staffs is 14.2%. And the best, should we say, or the least worst, has got 4.1%. So again, 1 in 20 households in the best areas of South Staffordshire are in a situation where the government says they can't afford to heat and eat. Now, these statistics were given prior to the COVID pandemic. So again, what we are seeing anecdotally and what some of the statistics coming from DWP are showing, again, these statistics, don't be surprised if they double, because that's what we're seeing sort of around COVID, as people are being furloughed and that their incomes are being reduced. We are seeing desperation predominantly now working age families. So that's an issue. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I've mentioned sort of the inefficiency of a home, and sort of saying there are things that we can do about it under the wider social determinants of health. So there's issues within a home, of which excess cold is one, that causes and has been shown to cause a cost to the NHS. So I'm just going to put that figure up there, which basically says when somebody's done these figures, the cost to the NHS every year, this is first year cost to the NHS, excluding social care, excluding all the follow-on costs, is £848 million a year for not dealing with excess cold. The payback, if we were to fix every home and make it energy efficient and remove the threat of excess cold, the payback to the NHS takes no more than 7 years. And what I wanted to put it in comparison is the cost of the NHS of people falling down the stairs is significant, but it's £207 million a year. And again, a fire just down at £25 million a year. So I just want to put them figures in comparison, because there are things like disabled facilities grants for stairs, and there's obviously a fire service for fires. Excess cold is a bit of a difficult one, and I personally think it's just because there's a sort of a separation of, again, nobody goes into the hospital saying, I've come into hospital because I'm cold. They've come in with an exasperation of another condition. So there are knock-on effects of improving the energy efficiency of people's homes, which aren't just about reducing the costs, it's also about increasing the health as well. So next slide, please. Okay, so what's available? What can we do? What's available now? So we'll be delivering a fuel poverty advice service as the 1st of April, as far as is practical and financially possible. According to this NICE guidance, which was published in 2015, which is excess winter deaths and cold-related ill health, which basically says you take a tailored approach to each individual household. You get their outgoings down, their income up, and improve the energy efficiency of their home. We are at the moment working through and in partnership with the County Council in South Staffs, providing fuel vouchers. This is for those who have been predominantly affected by COVID in a negative way, to support them to have some affordability. I think what's probably going to be most relevant to this group is there is currently funding. It is currently being delivered and will continue to be delivered for at least the next 12 months. And if government is to be believed, 24 months and going onwards, there's probably at the moment about £7 million worth of capital measures being sloshed around the county, of which South Staffs has its fair allocation. It's a rural district, so is more beneficial for some of the more off-gas measures that we're looking at here. So at the moment, through the Staffordshire Warmer Homes brand being delivered by the County Council in partnership with all the district and borough councils, we're able to offer air source heat pumps in properties that are currently off the gas and would not be able to be connected to the gas. That may be because they've got LPG or basically LGP, liquid petroleum gas, LPG and oil heating or electric heating. We're also able to put first-time gas central heating into properties that have not got gas central heating, so putting an energy efficient boiler in there. And currently through the government's Green Homes Grant, local authority delivery scheme, we're also doing things like solar panels, cavity wall insulation, loft insulation, and external wall insulation. The eligibility criteria for that is anybody in receipt of a disability benefit, anybody in receipt of a means tested benefit, and anybody who is low income as determined by the district council themselves in a what's called a published statement of intent, which is on your website at the moment. So that is available, and all these measures will increase basically the efficiency of a property, increase its energy performance certificate, and obviously have a knock-on effect about decarbonisation. And the direction we've seen from government at the moment is the whole decarbonisation agenda, and these measures seem to be a big push. It's something to sort of adopt and steal as much as we can. Next slide, please, which is the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. I think that was fascinating, and I think the human aspect of that is really clear, isn't it, to us all. So thank you very much for that. I know Martin will be around later, and we'll be in the some of the workshops. So I'm sure there'll be any opportunity to have some of those discussions then. We have got a few minutes now just for any questions. So we've heard a lot this evening so far. So we've heard from Imre, we've heard from Grant, we've heard from Ryan and Martin. So if you could use the hand function if you want to ask any questions. We've only got a few minutes, so I will limit the questions, but please do, if there are any questions for any of the speakers this evening, please do ask, do put your hands up and ask now. That would be great. I can't see any hands as yet. You're saving yourselves for the conversations at the workshops. No, lovely. Right, I can see 2 hands up. So I have is it Eunice Lord and Councillor Penny Allen. So Eunice Lord first, please. Eunice.
Okay, I was very interested in the talk about the hub and all the measures that are in there. and Imre mentioned it being done to BREEAM standard. I just wanted to ask, do you think, Imre, it was built to the carbon neutral standard that will be necessary in future? And if it wasn't, what stopped that? What prevented it being built to carbon neutral if it isn't?
Yes, hello there. Yeah, we did actually follow the BREEAM standards for the new build there. We didn't need to have it formally registered because the actual size of the footprint is smaller because it's classed as a small extension to an existing building. But had we have built it as a standalone, we did still follow those BREEAM principles and those BREEAM standards. And a lot of that, for example, some of the examples that I used in the talk there around the natural air ventilation that we've used in the library, for example, some of those additional features that we've got in that part of the building, which we don't have elsewhere, that we were able to have and we needed to add as part of meeting the obligation for BREEAM standards. Because also BREEAM's not just about the building, it's about what else you're doing around making sure that you've got additional cycle bays as well to encourage people to cycle in, and having the facilities for things like electric vehicle charge points. So there's a whole cluster of standards and expectations that you work through and you work towards. So if, in short, if the new build was a new build in its own right, it would meet those BREEAM standards.
But there are many levels of BREEAM standard, as I understand it. Did you get to the carbon neutral? I ask because we're struggling with private housing to get them built carbon neutral. I wondered about your case.
In all truthfulness, I'd need to go back and have a look at the exact detail of that with you, and I'd be quite happy to follow that up with you and with the architect who's designed that. The architect is the one who's got that specialist level of information for it, because not only the architect but the electrical engineer and the mechanical engineer, they all work together as a design core team. And actually, maybe that's a conversation we could deep dive into and share the experiences of what we've done in the hub with yourself there. So I'd like to take that up if that's okay.
Yes, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Eunice, and thank you, Imre, for that answer. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Something about the efficiency of public buildings owned by our parishes comes to mind, looking at the new hub and how the way that's been arranged. Has the District Council thought of doing an audit of the public buildings that parishes own and that are owned in the parishes? And is it possible for us to have a map of the least energy efficient properties in our parishes? I'd be very interested to know whether they're in social housing or private rented housing. And I realise we wouldn't have much opportunity to lobby private landlords, but we certainly would if it was in social housing.
Thank you. There's a number of questions there, Councillor Allen. I'll ask Martin to answer the question in terms of the energy efficiency of the individual properties, and to see if we can drill down the map that issue up earlier. I'll ask Martin just to respond to that. But I think in terms of the parish, you asked in terms of the parish council estate. I think as Councillor Jessel mentioned at the start, there is quite a lot that we can do in relation to looking at the parishes can actually do in terms of looking at what might be the efficiency of their individual estates. So I think that's certainly something that we can look at collectively. So I think that's something that we can take away to have a look at and to see what actually those opportunities might be. But I think that's something that we certainly want to do together, and I think that's something that the District Council would want to do to the parishes. I think that's something that we might wish, if we were to do that, then we would be looking at that as a whole. Okay. Martin, are you able to just to answer Councillor Allen in terms of the detail of the properties?
Yeah, so in regards to the energy performance certificates, they're a publicly available document you can download for the entire council and any EPC that's been registered. The downside of that is if a property hasn't had an energy performance certificate done, as in it's not been sold or it's not been rented, that you may not know what the energy performance certificate of that property is. As a social rented property, there's a lot of work that was done around the decent home standard just after the turn of the century. So most or a high proportion of the social rented housing should be of a decent standard. And I know that we are working with some registered social providers, basically tweak around the edges about things that weren't classed as affordable before, which we may be able to do now, such as taking people off electric storage heaters and put air source heat pumps in. There's a minimum energy efficiency standard for private rented. I would say if you wanted to have some fun at the council, run the EPC register off, filter it by private rented and filter it by the EPCs that don't meet the minimum energy efficiency standard, and go after them landlords and them addresses. And for the private rented, for the owner occupiers, obviously the schemes that we're doing through Green Homes Grants, Local Authority Delivery and the Warm Homes Framework, that should assist that. But that data is available down to council level. It's a publicly available document on EPC registered communities, I think .org.uk, and you just download it for the entire council.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for that. We've got I've got Anita Anderson, and then I think we'll make this Anita's question the last one before we hand over to the to the workshops. There will be opportunity to discuss obviously a whole host of issues in the workshops, but just in terms of the question, Anita.
Yeah, I just wondered what the impact of the 14 warehouses and the rail at the West Midlands interchange will have on this project, and what's going to be done to sort of make sure that, you know, that stays in check. Is the community group going to be up and running for that?
Okay. Yes. Well, that's a very good question. As you know, that you're talking about the West Midlands interchange, aren't you? The rail service, or the rail served warehousing at the West Midlands interchange, which was granted consent by government back this just about 12 months ago. So yes, I mean, clearly as a council, we'll be working with the operators to maximise the benefits in terms of any sustainability benefits. Clearly, one of the aims of it is to take cars and lorries off the road, and to, you know, obviously to provide roles and employment opportunities for people in the area. Clearly, we will be having community groups once we know and we have clarity from the operators when we're going to be able to be looking at those what's going there and when that's happening, what type of planting is going to be going on there, how we're going to minimise the impact and mitigate any impact. And obviously get some benefits out of the scheme as well. We will be certainly having those conversations with the community, so and certainly with the parishes. So watch this space, and as soon as we're able to, then we'll be engaging with you, because we absolutely are keen to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for those really excellent questions, and thank you to all the presenters for the first half of the session. Liz, can we have the next session? Lovely, thank you. So really now is the time. We're going into our workshop breakout sessions, and we've set everybody up in terms of different locality sessions. So whether you're a district member, a parish member, or you're an invited guest this evening, you'll have been set out into your locality session. So you'll have another invite into your diary, and this is the absolute beauty of virtual teams working. It's amazing. We've got 73 people on the call this evening, which is great. And if we get 73 people into individual workshops and then back again to the end, then I think we'll consider it a success. So let's hope that works later on. So in each locality session, you'll have a facilitator. Once you get into that session, the facilitators will make themselves known to you, and they'll have a number of questions and discussion items that they want to discuss with you. Liz, if we can have the next slide, please, just so we can run through those. So in the workshop, and as we've said, we have spent some time talking to you this evening, but really we want to spend the next part of the session listening. So we want to hear what are parishes doing in your areas in relation to climate change, and what are community groups doing in the area doing in their areas. Can we work better together to deliver those initiatives? How would you see the forum of this type working in the future? Is there anybody we're missing? Is there other people that need to be involved? And a real takeaway thought, is there anything that you'd like to commit to in the next 12 months to help with the effects of climate change? What's the big thing that we can do together to make an impact in terms of climate change? So, right. I can see people are starting to go into their individual groups. It is now 19:25, so if we can get back into this main group at 5 to 8, so we can spend the last half hour just going through the issues that have been raised in each of the sessions. So the facilitators, if you can hear, 5 to 8, can you come get everybody back into this main group? And good luck, and I hope you enjoy the workshops. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Hingley, you okay?
No, we've had to come off because of double voices, and I can't get back on.
Ah, right, okay.
Number 5.
Group 5. Who's in your group then? Is that Grant? Is Grant?
Grant.
Okay, so you can't get back on. Okay.
No.
You mean there was a repeat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you get me on?
Let me see what I can do.
Thank you.
Okay, you stay there, and I'll come and see if we can get you in. Okay.
Annette, I need to go. I'm sorry I couldn't make the first part of it. What on earth happened to my computer, I don't know. But anyway,
okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay. All right. No problem. No problem, Councillor Williams.
Are anybody still on the main event who should be in workshop 1? Because we've got a lot of people who are missing.
Yeah, Adrian Nicklin, should be in locality 3.
Oh no,
Right. Okay.
we've got no parish councillors in
Locality 1. How bizarre. Okay.
on.
Okay, let me see if I can, Councillor Hingley, Councillor,
Yes.
I think if you come out of this group,
Yeah.
if you close out of this group, I think you'll find yourself in, because Councillor Wilson has just, Councillor Wilson has just said that you're actually in that meeting as well, so you must be on hold in the other meeting. Okay. All right. Okay. So if you leave this meeting and then go back into the other one the way you did originally. Okay. Right.
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be. I think I should be in group 1.
You should be in group 1, Councillor Ford. Yes. Yeah.
I haven't been able to get any of the slides either.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, not to worry, because we're recording it, so we'll be able to find that. We'll be able to find that. Okay. I think if folks who are on each individual meeting can come out of the main event meeting, and then they can start in the and close out of this meeting and go into the workshop meeting.
How do we do that?
But you need to come out of the meeting, leave the meeting, and then go into the individual meeting.
Yeah, but what can I just ask? It's very confusing. I was expecting to be put straight through. So what's happening now?
Right. Okay. You've got
I've only got, so on the original login.
Yeah.
I got to the first one. Is it the second login on there?
The second you need now. Yeah. The second one.
It's not very clear.
Okay.
So I will come out and go in on the second login. Okay. But will that take me to locality 3?
It should do. It should do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Annette, can't get in.
Okay, I'll try and get you in, Councillor Hingley. Okay, I'm going to leave this part meeting and go into workshop 5 and get you in that way. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, for some reason I'm not in a group. I don't know why that's happening. Are you okay, Alan? Can you hear me?
We're 5 to 8 as we said we folks to get back. So we'll wait a minute. Excuse me. We'll wait a minute to get everybody back. This is always the challenge, to bring everybody back to where they need to be. So I think we did manage to lose. There was a few folks who I think struggled to get into the individual locality sessions, but I'm hoping that we can that they eventually got themselves into the right place. Andy Aston, are you back in the room, or are you on hold, or are you back? Is your group back?
Yes, we're back. Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. So have we got group 1 back? No, not yet. Have we got group 2 back?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Have we got group 3 back? No. Have we got group 4 back? No. And we haven't got group 5 back. Okay, they're obviously still running on then. I'll give them a minute and then I'll go and see if I can find them. Have we got? I can see Councillor Hingley, so I think we've got group 5 back. Is that right? We've got group 5 back now.
Yeah.
Group 5. Lovely. Lovely. Super duper. Have we got group 4 back?
Group 3 is on its way.
On its way. Okay, so we've got group 2, we've got group 3 on their way, group 5 are in. That's good. We'll give it a few more minutes before we start going chasing them.
Annette, it's working very well if you do it properly, doesn't it? It's excellent.
I think, yeah.
I thought I was going to have some problems, but I didn't.
No, you don't. Everybody's done very well. I'm very impressed. We did have 70. We had 70 people on the originally when we started, and we've got 40 back now. So we've lost a few, but I'm sure we'll pick them up during the next few minutes. Sorry, we're having trouble getting a few more folks back into this meeting. We'll be there with you in a moment. Hang on. Bear with me. Councillor Holmes, are you back in? Are you in this meeting now? You got
Yes, I went into the third one.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, super. Right then.
Realised needed to leave and went in the second one, but that was confusing, I must admit.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're all back now. Right. We have do seem to have lost a few on the way, but we've still got 60 people back in the meeting. I know a couple of folks have had to go. So what we really want to do now is just spend the next sort of 20 minutes really getting the feedback and the rich seam of conversations that I know that's been had in each of the locality sessions. So locality session by locality session, I'm going to excuse me, ask you all to feed back just the key things that came out of your sessions. So so for the first session, in terms of locality 1, can I have your thoughts in terms of the answers to those questions, and what was the key themes that were coming out of your meeting? So locality 1 first, and I think it's Ed who was facilitating. Ed, are you going to feed back, or is it somebody else in the team who's going to feed back?
No, it's me and Ryan. I'm going to be feeding.
Oh, sorry, Ryan.
It's all right. So on the first point, looking at obviously what parishes are currently doing. Sorry, retracing my notes. So there were things around looking around sort of tree planting on highways and things like that. We were aware of some parishes that are looking at like changing the lighting into sort of LED lighting. We knew of Acton Trussell that had planted 50 trees, and we're also linking in with the Moat House who've agreed to take 100 trees for planting. But we also just noted that there obviously needs to be diverse planting as well, trees and shrubbery and things. Around community groups, we wasn't aware actually of any sort of direct community groups and what they were doing, but it was raised that in Penkridge, for instance, there was they've got 80+ volunteers that are doing litter picking. So obviously there's a good team there that potentially could look at once we come up with ideas for climate change, that there's a group of community groups there that would be able to do things for us. We also noted that not in our area, but there was in other areas, we're aware of things where parishes have purchased CO2 monitors, and they've been using that to monitor sort of the air quality around schools and things, feeding that back to the schools and getting that back to the parents to make parents aware of the sort of the poisons basically that are in the air around the schools that they're going to, feeling that it'd have a good impact with people. And there was also, again, in another area, them testing something around green walls, which is basically a wall of plants. So obviously it's very visually attractive, but also that those plants do a lot of drawing the particulates and things out of the air to improve the air quality. Looked at obviously how we could work better together as a 3-tier, and certainly in our group we had a lot of district, but there wasn't many parish sort of councillors there, so we discussed things like perhaps holding things like this on council nights and having these discussions on council nights where people are already meeting and linking into existing meetings rather than bringing in additional meetings. And it was also raised at a county level. There's a joint waste management board, but looking at potentially changing that to more of a sustainability board that obviously has a focus around the waste management, but waste management contributes a great deal to CO2, so making it more of a broader spectrum that's looking at to help tackle that CO2. In terms of anyone missing, it was raised around young people and working with secondary schools and raising the awareness there and potentially making climate change part of the curriculum. And around the commitments over the next 12 months, things it was difficult to bring up things specifically to commit, but certainly looking at the policies and strategies to make sure that whatever we do is effective towards climate change, and also linking in with people like NHS who own a lot of land around the tree planting. And it was also mentioned that church land as well, potentially churches and own a lot of land, so making sure we're linking into the right people to identify those landowners that we can work with around obviously tree planting opportunities, but also the flood management and things. And that's most of the notes I've got. If there's anyone else there's anything I've missed, Key, that want to chip in.
I think that's a good summary, Ryan.
Thanks, thanks very much, Ryan and Ed. That's really that's really useful. I think there's obviously some key things there, and I'm just picking up in terms of it's about information sharing. It's about going, and I think in your locality that you're looking at, obviously going out to those parishes, maybe what's required. So I think there's a couple of things there that we can look at. I think in terms of the tree planting, actually being able to identify where the tree planting is going and sort of maintaining that mapping, and also pulling the information together. So fantastic! Thank you very much, Locality One, for your feedback. And there's lots of things that we'll pull out. Lots of things that we can pull out on there. Thank you very much. Over to Locality 2 now. Who's going to do the feedback from Locality 2?
Annette, it's Mark Sutton here. I am, and then Imre's going to add in anything that I've missed, if that's okay.
Lovely, thank you. So there we go, fire away.
Right, okay, so what are parishes doing? And this response is going to be a little bit all over the place, really, because we didn't really stick to the questions as such. But what are parishes doing? We have already developed their own climate change plan strategy. Part of that, they're working with schools and for every child there. And I know that Wheaton Aston Parish and Brood and Coven Parish have had funding from the County Council through the climate change grant that Councillor Jessel spoke about earlier. What we did think, and I think a lot of it revolved around what we felt was missing. And there's lots of community groups. A particular set of community groups that we thought about was the recycling groups. And if you have a little look on Facebook, most areas have got a recycling group. Brood have got a Brood Matters group. Coven have got a Brood Recycling Matters group. And I noticed actually for the information of Locality One that Penkridge, I've got a Penkridge Matters recycling group as well. So we thought there's a lot going on there. That's something that should be involved in what we're doing. We thought younger people, their views, schools, education, their views were missing tonight. Businesses. What are businesses doing in the area? What are landowners doing? How can we work with businesses? How can we work with landowners to impact on climate change going forward? The idea of active travel was brought up as well, and one thing we thought about is the governance of this and how this is driven, how we drive this forward. And we felt that the locality forums was the ideal place for that. And the suggestion was that we had a standing item agenda on our locality forum of climate change, so that we could try and drive this forward and perhaps develop a plan, strategy stroke plan for our locality. I think there's a few other things that were mentioned, but I think Imre might be able to pick up on that. Before I do finish, one thing I wanted to mention is that there is now, I understand, a facility on Teams where all the going into and out of different sessions can all happen automatically, which really does help with timing, because you just get a countdown, and if you haven't left by the time, you automatically are pushed back to the group or to the group, whichever way you're going. So Imre, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
I think that was a really fantastic, comprehensive feedback, actually, of everything that we went through, and we really did kind of then focus on that last bit, that takeaway thought, which was, just to re-emphasize there, was around using these existing structures that we've got, using the locality forums, having it as a standard agenda item, so that there's a governance structure in place to allow us to reach out to all those other groups that you mentioned there, to ensure that everybody, this is the start, really, this is the beginning, that this is the forum now which we can feed back into at a district and a county level, and to help tap into county and national funding opportunities as they come through, and that can feed through as well. So yeah, I don't think there was anything else to add there. I think between us, that's from the group, we picked everything up from locality too. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, locality too, for that feedback. I think again picking up some real things in terms of the obviously you're obviously fascinated with hearing from them in terms of the county climate change grant. Again, that's useful to for us to be aware of, and maybe we can link to that as well on our websites. Obviously you're picking up that you've got your recycling groups. And I think the ability of the localities forums to really drive and focus some of that again is really good. And I love the idea in terms of the locality taking ownership of an action plan again. So that's great. Thank you very much, locality 2. Who's going to feedback from locality 3?
I'm happy to do that, Nate. I was frantically
Lovely.
scribbling notes as I went.
Right, thank you, Ryan.
Lots of really good discussions going on, to be honest, and perhaps unsurprisingly, a few sort of familiar points that we discussed within our group. As with anything, I think we could probably done with another couple of hours to talk through the various points. So, in a bit of a sort of scattershot approach, really, I'll talk through some of the main issues. Lots of discussions around trees, as you'd expect, and sort of problems with identifying land, and then that went on to a bit of a conversation about sort of key partners to get involved. There was a good point raised around some work Councillor Cope been doing with Moseley Old Hall. Should we be looking to the National Trust here to get those involved as partners? Lots of conversations about schools and tree planting and importance of getting children involved, but also making use perhaps of the vast amount of sort of school grounds that there are up and down the district. There's also some very good points. Dave Knowles from the Forest of Mercy was on our call and mentioned a number of schools that they were already working with, and they'll be approaching the schools across the district in the coming year. Some good pointers as well about to be careful where we plant. It's all too easy to rush out there and plant loads of trees everywhere without any real thought about what they're going to look like in 20 years' time, and where should they be placed, and right tree, right place. There's really a nice idea actually for those of us like as old as me are old enough to remember the council's free tree scheme that we used to run across the district. Are there any opportunities to sort of resurrect something like that, where we're offering out trees to residents in the district to go and plant in their own gardens? I appreciate the Forest of Mercy are a small organisation. That might not be something that they can necessarily facilitate something of that scale themselves, but is there a role for us and the parish councils perhaps to be getting involved here? And there was lots of questions really. Martin Peake was lucky enough to be in our group, so there's a fair few questions to him about the sort of the energy grants for buildings and stuff. Lots of good discussion and sort of key points really about how do we get the information out to our residents about the grants and the sort of the energy schemes that are available to residents within the district, and what's our role at the council and the parish council in getting the message out to the communities. And finally, there was lots of good discussion around sort of flood resilience and the sort of works that are being done around Great Worley Community Centre, and also finally I nearly missed this one out. A good point was raised by Councillor Beardsmore that if there are parishes out there who are interested in looking to improve the energy efficiency of their facilities, their community centres and that, if there's enough of these centres across the district, is it something that we can look at as a bit of a partnership approach and sort of join together and get some consultants in to help us out on that? And I think, unless anybody's going to chip in and remind me of something I missed out, I think that was the main points really.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you. So thanks everybody in locality 3. So I think there's a couple of really good points there. Clearly, trees was coming out. I'm picking up in terms of obviously tree planting being crucial, absolutely crucial. I think one of the things I really picked up there as well was I think it was the Councillor Beardsmore point in terms of improving energy efficiency across the public estate and whether we could do something in partnership across that estate. I think that's something that we can pick up and have a conversation. But again, the key thing coming out of that group was very much in terms of in terms of the future, in terms of maintaining the dialogue and maintaining the information that we've got. So great, thank you very much. Who's going to feed back from locality 4? Who have we got in locality 4 who's going to feed back to us?
I think that'll be myself, Annette.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Annette. Key things that have come out of the locality 4 session tonight, a lot of those have been picked up by colleagues and members in the other groups. So from the 4 parish areas within locality 4, the key initiatives that are being undertaken is tree planting, various degrees of that across the four parishes in locality 4, but a general involvement by all of those areas. I guess one that's springs out really is Purton and looking to plant 60 rare black poplar trees within the village. Again, litter picking was a common theme across those 4 areas, as well as a lot of the parishes looking at LED lighting within their facilities as opposed traditional lighting. I guess there was a crossover really between some of the work that the parish picked up and some of the friends groups within those areas as well. 2 big predominant friends groups in those areas, the Friends of Brillbrook and Wild About Purton, who've involved in lots of initiatives within the area, from running the Spring Festival of over a number of years, showcasing work within the Purton area. There's the development of meadow grass verges and areas within locality 4 in a number of the parishes. Couple of sort of novel ones which I don't think have been mentioned tonight. Pattingham and Patsall are looking at the development of a tiny forest initiative within the village. There was a forest school in Pattingham which developed an initiative, but they couldn't continue with that. So local group and the parish have taken that on, which is really good. And also looking at more energy efficient ways to light up the village at Christmas. And I guess the other area which was picked up was guerrilla gardeners and guerrilla litter pickers. So not formalised groups, but it just appears to be lots of people out and about picking litter and doing their bit at the moment, not a part of official groups, but again that was one of the areas that was picked up in locality 4. In terms of programs, in terms of how people can work together, the building efficiency element again was picked up. So was waste and recycling initiatives and how we can work closer together across all 3 tiers of government around those initiatives. Transport was also a key factor in terms of if we want more people to travel through greener measures, then it's having the transport infrastructure to do that. So active travel, but also other means of transport. Housing associations were mixed as a partner who isn't around the table, which would be good to involve, but also transport bodies would also be beneficial to be part of future meetings as well as schools. I think the biggest takeaway points really were information sharing across the parish areas and also the 3 tiers of government, which I guess is wrapped up in joined up closer collaborative working. Moving on to the meeting and future structure of that, there's a general consensus that it was good to get together and put the climate change issue on the table. I guess the big takeaway point was really that I guess this is the best example of an economic carbon neutral meeting. Is everyone doing it virtually? So in future, rather than driving to one location or a number of locations, I guess this is leading by example. And for this particular meeting focused on climate change, a virtual meeting is probably the best approach. Moving forward, members felt it was important that we did meet, but it didn't become too much of a talk shop. There's lots of good evidence-based practice there already. So rather than as the meetings develop over the future, can we develop action plans and options and I guess really demonstrate some change locally, so we've got some results to show for the work that we've done. And final point from me, Annette, is the takeaway there was lots of conversations on the session tonight, but we were conscious that not everybody could make the meeting tonight, so potentially an opportunity for people to feed in who couldn't make tonight's meeting, which may help us capture any points that we may have missed tonight. So those were the key points from Locality 4, Annette.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Locality 4. Great responses there. And again, picking out, I'm just hearing from there, picking out some key things in terms of tree planting. Interesting to hear about the tiny forest in Pattingham and Patzel. And brilliant, the energy efficiency ways to light up, better energy efficient ways to light up at Christmas time. I think in terms of the housing association and schools, again, that's something as we progress as the localities to get those together. So brilliant opportunities for joined up working and sharing information as well, and great in terms of the action plans and putting stuff into practice. Brilliant, thank you very much, Locality 4. But just on terms of that point, I will reference this at the end. I know we've got Locality 5 to excuse me, to come yet. This has been recorded, as we said at the beginning, so the presentations have been recorded and the feedback has been recorded as well. So anybody who hasn't been here and who wasn't in part of the workshops, at least would be able to see this, and we'll put this on our website, so folks can anybody can pick it up and hear anything that was said. So hopefully, just if the message can get out to parishes as well. Okay, so who's feeding back from Locality 5? I know it's Grant. I think you were in that. You were the facilitator for that group. Who's going to feed back?
That'll be me as well.
Well, great.
So I shall be providing the scores from the Locality 5 session. And one of the disadvantages of going last is a lot of the things have already been said, but I'm pleased to say we have got some slightly different things to introduce. I know Mark mentioned the benefits of us all saving our carbon by not driving into this meeting. We had, unfortunately, technical problems, so we lost a good 5 or 10 minutes at the start while we tried to resolve those. But some of the good things that are currently happening out there, Kimber Parish Council have recently introduced some EV charging points on some car parks, which I think may well be a first, I don't know, but they're quite happy to share their experiences with anybody else that is potentially interested in how they've done that, and they got grant funding up to 75% of the cost of those to make it happen. They're also looking at some wildflower planting within Kimber, and there was some interesting discussion around potentially looking at that in other places within the locality as well. And there was some interest around some of the tree planting, so some common themes coming through there. In terms of community groups, we have got friends groups at Kimber. We've got the Friends of Wombrick Walk. We've also got the Active Best Kept Village group in Wombourne as well. I think there was some talk about potentially looking at parish level carbon footprinting tool and whether it was worth all the parishes starting to have a look at that, so they got an understanding of what was going on within their particular localities. I think what came through really strongly was that the locality approach of parishes working with neighbouring parishes came through really strongly as a way that they wanted to progress this sort of agenda, and the sort of locality forum approach seemed like a really good way to do that. So I think that again echoed what's come through from some of the other groups. In terms of inviting other people or people who might be missing, certainly inviting those community locality groups into these locality groups rather was a good one. Conscious within Locality 5, we've also got places like, I think Ryan mentioned in his locality, the National Trust. We've got Kimber Edge down in this locality. We've got Highgate Common. And we've also got a big estate with Enville Estate, and whether there was any potential to bring them in, because they're all potential big players on the sort of natural environment and potentially on this climate change agenda. And I think there was a feeling that the locality approach worked well, but this sort of wider session also helps because we're sharing information and good practice across all of the parishes and localities, so people can potentially pick up what others are doing as well. And I think the only other thing that we came out within the time that we had was that using those locality sessions to also potentially bring people in, like we've done today with Beat the Cold, so expert energy advisors that can come and talk to the parishes, give them some useful advice that they can then pass on to their communities, whether that's around energy efficiency or lowering carbon footprints. All of that is really good, helpful, practical information that they can pass on. And I think I'll leave it there because I think most of what we also discussed probably cropped up in some of the other groups. So I'm conscious of time. Back to you.
Lovely, thank you very much. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Locality 5, for those really insightful points. And I think really picking up from there. I think a couple of us had heard about the fantastic opportunity, fantastic project that's that is the EV charging points on Kinver High Street, and I'm sure many parishes will be able to benefit from looking at what grant funding and how you access those. So that's really critical. And I think that again, what's coming out very loud and clear is through the locality approach is about sharing good practice, and particularly in terms of the expert advice. So just to recap, then I think there's a couple of takeaways. Just picking out from the just picking out of those. And I'm really sort of seeing a number of key things that we can do and those commitments that we can do. We will feed back all the comments that we've had, and we will share the share the recording of this. So please, and then particularly the parishes who are here, share that with your. You'll be able to hopefully then be able to share that with your with your colleagues. But I'm picking out a number of things that we can do. I think one of the things is our website, or whether we as a district council can host the website in relation to the locality approach to climate change within the district, and we can really pick out some real fundamental practical things that are on there. So things like tree planting, things like the Kinver EV points, how Kinver did it, and help. I can see some of the conversations in the chats that have been parishes been offering their support to others. So phenomenal support there. So thanks very much for that. So there's that in terms of the web. I think that's something that we can really practically do and fairly quickly. I think there's the building efficiencies as well. So and by that I know a number of parishes have talked about the efficiencies within their own estate, and whether together collectively we can have a conversation about doing something, not as a district doing it to parishes, but collectively working together, and if we could possibly potentially look for some funding for that as well. I think there are other things as well, but probably longer term about looking at local action plans, and then looking at how we can actually quantify some of those carbon challenges and carbon savings that will have been made through that. Okay, so I think there's some real direct things that we can do, and I just wanted to say thank you huge amount for everybody who's contributed. I'm going to pass you over to Councillor Bates to finally close the session now. To finally close the session, but just a huge thanks for everybody's efforts to this evening, the presenters, most importantly the discussions that have been had. So I think they were rich, and I appreciate there's been some challenges in terms of the technology, but we had 75 people on at the start of the meeting, and I know there's a few issues, people getting in and out of the locality sessions, which was always a challenge, but we've still got 63 people in the meeting now. So well done everybody for that and for sticking with it. So a huge thanks very much to everybody for their efforts in terms of that. Councillor Bates, I'm going to hand over to you to close the event for this evening. Thank you, Councillor Bates.
I just wanted to say that I think we've had a tremendous evening. I've learnt an awful lot, and I think it's very important that having gone through this first stage that we drive it forward. And I'd like to say a very big thank you to everybody who's participated this evening. And I'd like to say a special thank you to our speakers, to Annette Roberts, to Councillor Julia Jessel, to Grant Mitchell, to Ryan Taylor, and to Martin Peake, and not forgetting Elizabeth Edgington, who's been responsible for the admin and making everything tick. Thank you very much for that. And it just remains for me to say that we've enjoyed an evening and we must drive it forward. And thank you very much for your attendance, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Nice.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Take care all.
Are you still there, Annette?
I am, Councillor Bates, yes.
What an evening.
You enjoy it?
I did. I thought it was first class.
Good, good.
So we've got a platform now to move forward, haven't we?
We have. I'm very pleased how it went. I'm very pleased.
It came together very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah. And Liz, is Liz still on the line? Can I see you, Liz? She's not gone, has she? Yeah. I've got to say, big clap to Liz there, because without Liz, it wouldn't have happened.
I did say thank you to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I think. So I was going to say, I think what might be helpful from here is fairly quickly to follow tonight up with what happens next then, because there's some momentum tonight, and I think it's important we keep it going. So almost what are we going to do off the back of tonight? I think would be quite useful.
I think that I think there's those things. We get the website, we get the page on the website to be able to do that. But messages coming through now are great. As Mark Jenkinson, he said he'd had the best night.
Yeah.
He needs to get out more, doesn't he? We need to get a web page, and that we can pull everything together. I think we can do that, and I think that would be something that we can do. And also, I think investigating what we can do with parishes in terms of their energy saving, that would be good as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can't hear you very well, Liz.
Councillor Lord's on the meeting. She's got a hand up.
Okay.
I don't think she has. I think she's on hold.
Okay.
I think she's on hold.
Okay.
Are you happy for me to go? Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking. Notes were taken tonight. Liz, were you